My topic is the crisis of the Strait of Hormuz. And over the past few months, there have been threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz. And since it's an extremely important point for oil transportation there, my main claim the continuing tensions between the United States and Iran and the Strait of Hormuz will lead to war between the two countries. My supporting facts: 1, are actions taken by Iran are influenced by the probable collapse of their export economy. 2, Iran's threat to close the Strait of Hormuz will increase of Navy ships from both sides to be deployed there. And 3 will be Iran's nuclear program have led to a conflict with the United States. Now going back to my first supporting claim, actions taken by Iran influence our probable collapse of the export economy. Sanctions established by the United States and the United Nations and the Iran export of oil are the reasons for actions taken by Iran towards the United States. As stated by Central Bank News, the U.S. President Barack Obama has signed into law new sanctions of Iran's central bank that will punish foreign financial institutions that do business with Iran's central bank. Therefore, this prohibits any country to do any business with Iran's central bank, and since it's their main bank and that's what they use to buy and export and pay for anything their economy, since we put a sanction on it, no one can trade, and prohibits to make business with Iran's central bank, therefore cannot trade, and it hurts the oil export economy, which is their main oil is their main export. Now, Iran having to deal with the sanctions established for central bank. Jeremy Polotsky and Basil Katz state that the central bank, known as the Bank of Karaksaki, will argue the funds because they were being used as currency reserves. So since the law, the bill was passed, what happened is that they have reserves over here in U.S. banks, and since we kind of froze their accounts, they cannot obtain any money in U.S. banks. So any money, the wide variety of money they had over here, they can't use it. My second claim, Iran's threat to close the Strait of Hormuz will cause an increase of Navy ships from both sides. Iran will deploy its Navy to close the Strait of Hormuz for pure transportation of oil. Examples of weapons that will be used stated by Daily Mail reporter. The country will use a combination of warships, submarines, speedboats, anti-ship cruise missiles, torpedoes, surface-to-sea missiles, and drones. Therefore, this combination of military equipment just in this very small place like the Strait of Hormuz, it's just for boats passed. And for both sides, deploying that many amount of military firepower, it could lead to disaster in the area. The United States will not tolerate the actions taken by Iran to cripple the oil flow in the Middle East. As stated by Daily Mail reporter, the U.S. Fifth Fleet says anyone who threatens to disrupt freedom of navigation in international strait is cleared outside the Committee of Nations. Any disruption will not be tolerated, said spokesman for the Bahrain-based fleet. The Bahrain-based fleet is one of our strategic places right there in the Strait of Hormuz. We have the U.S. Fifth Fleet there, and they're not just to protect or watch anything that goes in the Middle East, but to protect the transportation and the freedom of transportation and trade in the Strait of Hormuz. And the unit station, they have a pretty wide variety of U.S. aircraft ships and battleships there too. A blockade of the strait will lead to a raise in oil prices around the world. Expect oil prices to rise. David Yen states, and the point is not the production capacity, but the ability to ship alternate routes for Gulf oil are incredibly changing. Price will spike to at least $140 a barrel in the event of a disruption in the strait. So therefore, the reason is that Iran will close the Strait of Hormuz. Other oil countries will have to find other expensive ways to ship the oil, as instead of by boat, they'll have to transport it by trucks and stuff like that. And it's such a crucial thing is 15 million barrels of oil go through the Strait of Hormuz a day. Iran has been performing military exercises with all military sectors mobilized. Daily Mail reporter states Iran is holding a 10-day military exercise in international waters beyond the Strait of Hormuz, the passage route for 1/6 of the world's oil supply. And the 10-day exercise that Iran was working with, they actually ended exactly in the middle of the Strait of Hormuz. So that kind of shows the way that they already have everything planned, and if they want to close it. Third claim is the Iran nuclear program has led to conflict with the United States. the restrictions imposed by the UN and the United Nations, both in Iran to stop the nuclear program, and they have refusal to multiple bans have led to sanctions in Iran. But most of the sanctions they have in there. Iran is trying to keep much of its nuclear program hidden with factors that show for nuclear weapon usage. George Jan states that the UN Nuclear Agency on Monday confirmed that Iran has begun enriching uranium at the underground bunker to a level that can be upgraded more quickly for use in nuclear weapon and nation's main enriched stockpile. The main reason for this is because it is to protect their facilities against the probable of airstrike from the U.S. in case anything happens in the Strait or we have to attack the country. And the United States is enforcing that it's legal for them to use nuclear power for nuclear weapons. Overall, the tension in the Strait of Hormuz is getting critical, and if the Iran deploys their Navy ships and we deploy our Navy ship, any fire, shot, or just the tensions building up could lead to war in the country.
All right, I think you ID'd the topic clearly. I think you could use a little bit more context at the beginning of the argument. You've got a very clear statement of what your proposition is. The secondary claims are laid out pretty clearly. It seems odd that the third claim explains why the first claim is happening to begin with. So either you need to have more background at the beginning before you get to that first claim, or it might make more sense to have the argument about the U.S. because the whole reason that the sanctions exist in the first place is the nuclear programs. Maybe that should be early in the speech instead of saving it for the third point, because the third point doesn't really do anything except explain why this is going on. Your argument is that when this is going on is going to produce this particular harm, so it really feels more like background information there. Internally, I thought you did a pretty good job signposting things. You have some good factual data about Iran's resources in the area. You've got a quote from an authority in the U.S. fleet that talks about what's going to happen there. One thing that I think is missing is any indication that Iran has sufficient military resources to, in fact, blockade the Strait. If they can do that, then you have to worry about those economic issues with the oil barriers and all those kinds of things. But if they don't have that, then a lot of the argument just kind of dissipates, and that's where I think there needs to be a little bit more development. The likelihood of their willingness to do this in light of the U.S., either it's present there or the statement from the commander of the resources there that says we're not going to let this happen, I think you need to talk a little bit more about some of the political considerations that go in there. But you did a nice job citing the evidence. I thought you started off pretty well talking to the audience. We were not quite as effective in the later parts of the speech. Your eye contact dropped down a little bit more. And I know that sometimes people who aren't public speakers don't know what to do with their hands, but putting them in the pocket's not a good idea. We'll want you to do some indicators or some gestures or that kind of thing. All right, thank you.